I think one of the things that Tom Telesco has done very well this offseason is he's addressed needs so that the Raiders are headed into the draft. Now, it used to be in the past they were a wild card because you never knew if they were going to do something stupid like selecting Damon Arnett. This is different because they've addressed most of the needs and they're going to be addressing them a couple more before the draft. So they're in a spot where they're looking for best players, but they're not necessarily draft needs. They go and get a Gardner Minshew, so they're going to pick a quarterback, but there's no need for them to go up and overspend, which early in the process I reported when they talked to Chicago, it was 3 1s and 3 2s. That was too high. Now none of those teams are moving. They're all pretty slotted in. We know that the Browns are going to take Caleb. It's pretty obvious Washington's going to take Jayden. And then I think that New England's going to take J.J. McCarthy. In fact, I was the first one to write that. Now, NBC Sports, Boston Globe have all written that. If the Cardinals don't trade, they're going to take Marvin. I think, and this is not as settled as the previous 4 picks, I think you're going to look at probably the Bolts, maybe taking Neighbors, but I think they're going to take Bowers if they don't trade to let somebody come up and get Drake May. And then you get to 6. I think Drake May goes to the G-men. Each year in the draft, you see the same proverbial teams of drafting in the top part of the draft because they're not good. You can't be good in the fall if you're not good in the draft. And so there's going to be some way over picking of guys. I've been reporting this for months, and you'll appreciate this. All of the people in the NFL who I trust, who I have some of them a couple of decades relationship, have said to me they think Caleb Williams is the most overrated player in the draft. They think there's nobody more talented and there's nobody with more red flags. In fact, I've had teams that I consider good drafting teams saying they wouldn't touch him in the first round. It's why somebody will, and they may hit, but the chances are they're not going to hit. And it's why they'll be back here in 3 years looking for another quarterback and be the team we just talked about who are consistently drafting poorly. So, because there's going to be some teams making mistakes at the top, it's going to drop some exceptionally good players down to the Raiders at 13. I think there's a chance they move back between 17 and 25 and pick up not only that team's first round pick, but their second. But so I think the position they're in is it's not a place in need. So I'm going to give you some names. You could see a Terry and Arnold, who they really like a lot. They think he's the number one corner. In fact, when Kool-Aid McKinstry was still considered by everyone the number one corner, I was writing that around the NFL, several teams were thinking of him as number one. He is that guy. An offensive lineman. Now I'll make this prediction. I made it on several national shows. The most offensive linemen picked in the first round is 5. I believe there's going to be 10 or more this year in talking to NFL people. So they can stay at 13 and get in my last mock I had him getting the guy out of Penn State who's a tremendous tackle, but because some teams are going to draft poorly, he's going to fall down the draft boards. So there's a potential there. A JC Latham is another one. What about Murphy, the defensive tackle from Texas? He's another big body, high energy, high motor guy. They are never going to turn down another defensive lineman. Antonio Pierce said earlier this offseason he knows how to build a Super Bowl champion. Remember, his team beat the team that many consider the best in NFL history, Tom Brady's undefeated team in the Super Bowl, because four defensive linemen that got pressure so they could put 7 guys out in space. So again, I think you could see defensive tackle, offensive lineman, or Terry and Arnold. I don't think they would go a wide receiver there. We know there are no linebackers or running backs worthy of a first round pick in this draft. Again, I don't think there's a few positions that there isn't. Doesn't mean there's not quality, but it's at a different spot. So if your question of 3, they're going to address quarterback at some point. They're going to get a running back probably at some point. But early on, offense, defensive line, and corner.